Good morning, Mr. Lanier.
Good morning, Bill.
This early, you'll have to take the local.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, take that.
Good morning, Miss Linnea.
Good morning, Martha.
I thought it... 40th floor executive, Ramsey and Company. Miss Stevens speaking. Well, I'm sorry, but our switchboard doesn't open till 9 o'clock. But you should be able to get Mr. Donaldson shortly after that. Well, I'll leave your name with his assistant, Mr. Phillips, right? Thank you. Oh, Anne.
Yeah?
Put this on Bill's desk, will you, for Mr. Donaldson?
Sure thing. Oh, Fortescue?
Dale to Steel and Copper, I think.
Oh, well, Billy can take care of this. No sign of the new genius, I suppose.
Is today the day?
Yeah, it sure is. Yes, Anne? Can I help you, Miss Lanier? Why, thank you. Would you fill that with water for Mr. Ramsey? Certainly, Miss Lanier. The new executive arrives today, doesn't he? Mr. Staples? Yes. This morning, probably. You know, I hardly recognize Mr. Phillips' old office the way it's been fixed over for Mr. Staples. Real antiques, my goodness. Yes, well, it appears that Mr. Staples prefers early American to contemporary pieces. Now, all the girls are so excited, Miss Lanier. It's the first time since any of us have been in this office that a new vice president has been brought in from outside the company. Miss Evans, are you starting a rumor or merely repeating one? I'm sorry. Oh, it was just that he was being given an office so close to Mr. Ramsey's and all the other executives in the building. Mr. Staples' position in the company will be made clear when Mr. Ramsey chooses to define it. A new vice president is not made until another one leaves. Our guesses, even on a secretarial level, could cause others a great deal of embarrassment, possibly even harm. Yes, ma'am. I'd appreciate it if you'd make this very clear to the rest of the girls. Yes, ma'am.
What'd you find out? Wow, you never know when you're going to hit a nerve.
Tonight we present the 463rd play in this series, Patterns by Rod Serling.
Next car, please. Next car, please. Right here. Yes, here. Charlie, Steve, Bill. Express down. No stops. We're jammed.
You can't be going on.
I'm sorry, sir. All the outside lines are taken. We're waiting.
Good morning, Miss Hill.
Good morning, Miss Stevens. Is my boss in yet?
No, you're lucky.
Oh, it was the subway. It was tied up on 14th.
Yes, dear, I've heard that one, too. Oh, good morning, Mr. Ramsey.
Miss Stevens?
Oh, Miss Lanier, it's Miss Stevens. He's here.
Morning, Miss Lanier.
Good morning, sir.
Any messages?
No one important.
Hicks, Martin, Tool and Die, Van Buren, Drovers Trust Company, Romaine. Nothing important, how true. Well, I finished my analysis of our Portland factory last night.
All of it?
All of it. It's here in my briefcase. I wanted teletype this morning to our Seattle office. Have someone there drive over to Portland and get it to Johnson before lunch their time. That'll be the quickest way by far. Then run off 20 copies, confidential mimeographing, and have them ready in time for the board meeting. That's our topic for today, and it's a big one. Mr. Staples arrived yet?
Not yet, sir.
Delay that meeting until 11 this morning to give you time to have the report mimeographed and distributed. I want it read, and carefully. Get word underground to their secretaries that no one is to count on making any early luncheon dates. Also that Staples is to sit one down from Gordon on my left.
Yes, sir.
Let me know as soon as Mr. Staples arrives.
Yes, Mr. Ramsey.
Fred, let me pick you up for lunch after I finish shopping. I can't wait until tonight.
Will you relax? Will you just do that?
Look, maybe they were just joking. Maybe they don't even expect you. Oh, darling, you look wonderful. Charcoal gray suit, striped tie. Not a trace of Cincinnati.
Is that good?
For the moment. You've arrived, Mr. Staples.
I must have to get you to drive me to work.
Only this once. Just to see my man get in that elevator and ride right up to the sky.
Goodbye.
Bye, darling. Oh, Fred.
Oh,
Take good care of yourself.
Okay, take it up, Steve. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. This is the next elevator right here.
I want Ramsey and Company. The board there.
Good morning, Mr. Evans. Good morning, Mr.
The board there says.
Yes, sir. Executive or administrative?
Executive, Mr. Ramsey.
Well, that's the 40th floor, sir. Good morning,
Right,
sir.
thank you.
Oh, sir, you want the tower, sir?
What?
At the tower elevator, sir. That's the first corridor to the right.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Elevator will take you right up.
Morning.
Hi, Marge. Well, Mr. Ramsey really fixed this place up for him, didn't he?
Very nice.
Nice spot for the boss's new assistant.
Every
Three
year
down
of
for the
efficiency.
Yes, Marge.
Mr. Staples goes into Mr. Sloane's adjoining office because they happen to be working together, or will work together. You girls see hidden meaning in wall colors. You know, Margie, it's pretty much common knowledge that your Mr. Sloane isn't exactly the fair-haired boy around here. That's not common knowledge. Common gossip. Mr. Staples, I'm Margaret Lanier, Mr. Ramsey's secretary.
Well, how do you do, Mrs. Lanier?
Mr. Ramsey would, of course, be here to welcome you himself, but you caught him on a long-distance telephone call.
Quite all right.
May I show you back to your office?
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, have you met Miss Stevens?
Oh, well, I introduced myself, Miss Lanier.
Fine. Then just come with me, Mr. Staples. And may I bid you my own personal welcome? We're very glad to see you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Lanier.
Good morning. Staples?
Yes.
Ah, I'm Jameson, head of purchasing. Welcome aboard.
Oh, how are you? Thank you very much, sir.
See you at the meeting.
Right on. Right.
Oh, excuse me, sir.
That's Staples?
Uh-huh.
Any first impression?
Oh, he looks a nice guy and young.
How young?
About 20 years under what I expected.
Good morning, Marge.
Good morning, Mr. Sloan. Mr. Gordon asked for the Anderson plant inventory reports.
Oh, yes. I forgot about those.
Put your messages on your desk, sir, and here's your coffee.
Well, thank you, Marge. Mr. Staples hasn't arrived, has he, Marge?
No, sir, just the furniture.
I see. There was some talk of tearing down that partition and making this into one large office for me. I suppose space was a factor in that.
I'm sure of it, Mr. Sloan. They're doubling up in personnel. Some of the girls have 3 and 4 people they're working for. Mr. Sloan, nothing's been mentioned, sir, about Mr. Staples' secretary.
I assume you'll be handling things for both of us for a while, Marge. I'll check with Mr. Ramsey later on.
Yes, sir. There are some letters you have to signature, too, sir. I'll bring them in.
Thank you, Marge.
The executive party. That's Mr. Ramsey's office down at the end there. And this is your office, Mr. Staples. Mr. Ramsey found out from someone in your old office that you were especially fond of early American.
Yes, very, but always from a distance. I've never been able to afford it.
Oh, this is Miss Fleming, Mr. Staples. She'll be your secretary for the time being.
Oh, how are you, Miss Fleming?
How do you do, Mr. Staples? And now, if you'll excuse me, I must go. Goodbye, Mr. Staples.
Goodbye, Miss Lanier. Thank you again. This is certainly some office, Miss Fleming.
Mr. Ramsey tries to furnish each office to fit the taste of the person in it.
He flatters me.
We will be sharing for a while the best secretary in the office. You're a lucky man. Let me be the last to bid you welcome.
Well, thank you. You're,
Andy Sloan,
Oh,
known as
yes.
your immediate superior. Only as time goes by, I get less and less immediate.
I think Mr. Ramsey said you'd been ill, Mr. Sloan?
Oh, did he? Actually, it was just a pesky stomach acting up on me. Are you busy?
Yes, very. Oh, thank you very much. I was just going to try out my desk and then
Get busy trying to look busy.
You won't have that trouble much longer. Mr. Ramsey has very definitive ideas about executives' working capacity. You'll be busy. You were in Cincinnati, that it?
Yes. Little plant I managed out there and did some subcontracting stuff for Mr. Ramsey, and well, he seemed to think I'd fit in here, so here I am. He's quite a guy.
Ramsey? He comes pretty close to being a production genius. He's also no slouch when it comes to judging men. You must have blown a bugle in his ear out in Ohio. He brought you here in a hurry.
As I remember, my side of the conversation was principally just shaking and nodding my head. A pretty dynamic man, as you probably know.
Yes, I know.
You've been with the firm quite some time, Mr. Sloan.
It's Andy to most people. Yeah, 24 years. 24 glorious years.
That kind of makes you an institution.
One of the security boys, that's me. Stay in one place, Sloan.
You must really like it, huh?
Yes, I like it. I seem to recall Mr. Ramsey speaking of you as a production man. You're an engineer, aren't you?
Why, yes, but from what he said, I think I'll be doing just a little bit of everything here. Mostly industrial relations.
Oh? Well, it's been one of my specialties.
Oh.
I guess we ought to work pretty well together.
I'm sure we will.
Excuse me. Mr. Ramsey's called a meeting in the conference room, Mr. Sloan.
Oh, thank you, Marge. Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Fred, is it?
That's right, Andy.
Mr. Ramsey's expecting Mr. Staples, too.
Oh?
Well, I'll go in with you if you don't mind.
All right, sure. I just have to pick up a few papers in my office first, though.
Sure hope Mr. Ramsey remembers hiring me.
Mr. Ramsey rarely forgets anything. After you.
No, I think I'm going to leave that with you. I'll contact you later about that. The other one. Much better. Will you do that? Yes, I will.
Oh, the second chair over there, Mr. Staples, please.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Sloan. Feeling better?
Much, thank you. A little stomach.
Good, I'm glad it's cleared up. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, sir.
At our board meeting last Friday, the purchase of the Anderson plant was discussed. We tossed it around for a while and made no conclusive findings. As you know, I've prepared my analysis of the entire matter. And I hope you've all had a chance to look it over. I'd like some opinions. Are you, Mr. Staples, finding your way around?
Yes, I think so, Mr. Ramsey.
Good. Mr. Staples is the newest member of our organization. He's from Cincinnati. A production engineer by training, an industrial relations man by instinct. I expect good things from him. You've met everyone, I think.
Yes, I am.
All right, gentlemen, let's get to this Anderson matter. Does it look feasible to you? Look practical?
Oh, yes, it's practical, all right.
I'd say so. How about you, Sloan? You look injured by it all.
You mentioned here probable time of purchase as sometime next spring. The plant will be in receivership until then?
That's what it says. Bother you?
Well, that means 6 months with improper maintenance of equipment, loss of goodwill, deterioration
If I may interrupt you, Mr. Sloan, it also means a saving of $500,000 in the purchase price.
plant employs 200 men. That's half the working force of the village.
So?
So, it means disrupting an entire village's economy.
That is very true. Anything else?
Aside from the consideration I mentioned, I think the purchase plans are adequate.
Adequate? Mr. Sloan thinks it's adequate. Well, Mr. Sloan, if I can't induce any more enthusiasm than that from you, I suppose I shall have to be satisfied with what little crumb of agreements you may toss at me.
I didn't mean to imply just adequacy, although I must admit to feeling a concern for 200 wage earners suddenly being deprived of a livelihood.
If you would do me the kindness to listen very closely to what I think is a fairly elementary thing. By putting 200 men out of work temporarily, we will ultimately employ twice that number in the same town. Because by purchasing the plant for less, we'll be able to cut production costs as a result of that saving. We will then be able to compete more favorably in the market because we'll be able to sell more goods. We're not going to ruin that town. We're going to make it. I should think, Mr. Sloan, that after 20 years you'd be able to think beyond the tongue-clucking stage and come up with something resembling an analytical point of view.
I was under the impression I'd given you a point of view.
I saw none. I perceived what amounts to a little emotional tidbit that was decidedly more charitable than cooperative and by no means thought through. I asked, I believe, for an objective view of a business venture. From you I got, and I seem constantly to be getting, a very negative response, if any at all. Adequate, I believe you said. Well, Mr. Sloan, this little move will save us $500,000, which we'll be able to put back into the business. I must say, you take a liberal view of adequacy.
I didn't mean just adequacy. I meant that by and large it sounds very good. Very good indeed.
Thank you. And bless you, Mr. Sloan. Mr. Sloan approves. How about you, Staples? Do you have an opinion?
No, sir, I'm afraid not.
Why don't you?
Well, I've only had about 5 minutes to look this over. I know nothing about the plant, its causes of bankruptcy, or the product itself, for that matter. I think I'll have to pass on this one at the moment.
Good answer. If you'd come up with an intensive program of your own after 5 minutes, I'd have had reason to doubt your sanity. I respect thoughtful judgment. Congratulations, Mr. Staples. Well, that's it for now. I want you gentlemen to pick this analysis to pieces, and we'll meet on it again tomorrow. If there are any flaws in it, I want to know about them now. That's all.
All right, sir.
How is that stomach, Andy? Acting up again?
I think much better.
Good boy. You leave early this week. Get some rest. Oh, Staples.
Yes, sir.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Find a house, did you?
Yes, we're renting out in Westville, Connecticut.
Oh, that's lovely country there. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Give my best to Mrs. Staples. I do hope we can have dinner together soon. See you later, Andy. Incidentally, Sloan here has a project that's being worked on now. It's a sort of end-of-the-year review of plant operations and suggested changes. I'd like you to get your finger into that. I think you could be of help to him. Matter of fact, I'm sure you can, Staples. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm early. I couldn't wait. How is it?
Oh, it's a little early to tell.
Your secretary said you were in a meeting. Did you see Mr. Ramsey?
Yes, I just left it.
Oh, darling, your office is beautiful.
Something.
Oh, and I bought some curtains for the house, the most gorgeous things. Oh, Fred, we're going to love it here.
Where do you get this vast reservoir of enthusiasm?
Now, why shouldn't I be enthusiastic? I love you very much.
Come on, let's go.
Okay, wait till I get my purse. Mom, I've got some paper.
Tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, Andy? Honey, come here. I want you to meet Andy's phone. And I guess you didn't hear me. Well, that's all right. You'll meet him later.
Take me to lunch. I feel like celebrating.
All right, where do you want to go?
Someplace very elegant and very unlike Mr.
You have come to the right man.
We continue with Act Two of Patterns by Rod Serling.
That's it. All right, let me see that breakdown.
Sure, Fred.
Oh, Miss Fleming, I want Billy to take with him my letter to Henry Jacobson.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is the one, I guess. It's the only one I got that's cross-checked for division, so don't let them keep it.
Right.
Now, listen, Bill. Henry is a very nice guy. I spent a week with him last month, but he's as hard as they come. You know, he started stoking coke furnaces at 14. He was mill foreman at 20, and he bought the company for his own 40th birthday present. So, now, listen. Give him the reports. Remember what he says. Take stenographic notes when you can. When you can't, write it down as soon as you get out of the room. I want to know what they think about every single one of those things. Listen, call me Monday night, will you? Try to get back by then if you can.
Right, Fred.
Just a minute, Miss Fleming, don't go, please.
Hello. Yes, this is Fred. Oh, hi, Judd. Yes, listen, I'm sorry. I meant to call you back. That Atlantic States nitrate meeting, yeah, it's been set up for March the 8th. I'd like a delay on it. Would you do that? Fine. Did those wires get out?
Yes, sir, they did.
Hello. Hello, Judd. Oh, that's fine. That's wonderful. That'll help a great deal. Okay, I'll see you in the dining room at lunch. Right. Now, after lunch, I'd like to set up I want to set up a conference call with Ramsey, Jameson, and myself with Mr. Deering in Denver, Colorado.
Hi. Say, how did you know it was my Paul's birthday last Saturday?
Oh, his old man told me a couple of weeks ago.
Say, that was very nice. If you know, the kid practically takes that football to bed with him. He said you came over Saturday to bring it and then stayed and showed him how to pass it properly.
Yeah.
Another thing he told me, that you were an All-American. Said he read it in a book, some sports magazine.
Well, that was a long time ago. I'm glad he liked it, Andy.
He did. All right. Very, very much. That was very thoughtful of you, Fred.
Not at all.
Oh, incidentally, I've got the first drafts on the report done. I was wondering if we could get together some evening and sort of go over it together soon.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, and listen, Andy, by the way, what about the party Sunday night? You going to be able to make that?
Well, I'm not sure yet. I was going to telephone Fran later this evening. But you go back to work. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
I've made arrangements for that call to Denver, Mr. Staples.
Oh, good.
If I could go over one paragraph in this letter.
I think I'll knock that off till after lunch, Miss Fleming.
Oh. All right, Mr. Staples.
Why don't you drink your coffee here and relax for a minute?
Thank you. I will. Would you like some of this? Some of mine?
Yes. A mouthful will do good. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Where'd you play your football, Mr. Staples?
Ohio State. Don't ask me the year because I won't tell you.
Old man.
Yeah. I'm 3 times as old as when I got here.
They've kept you busy.
Yes, they have, thank heaven.
It's their secret. You finished 3 assignments in 1 month. Now you're in charge of the Portland operation. They always give a man more responsibility than he thinks he can handle. You grow with it or go under. You've handled it very well. You fit it in quickly.
Thank you. You know something, Miss Fleming? I've been here over a month now, and that's the first out-and-out friendly thing you've said to me. You resent me a little bit, don't you?
Yes. Very natural. You work for a fine man for a long while. You're part of his future as well. Then comes the new man.
I like Andy Sloan. That may be our only common ground, but I do like him, and I have from the first.
Yes, I think you do. He's a fine man. He was with the firm when it was just a few frame buildings and 20 workmen. That's when Mr. Ramsey's father was in charge. Mr. Sloan is the last of the original bunch. That is not easy to be the last of the original bunch.
I guess not.
If I seem protective, defensive, it's habit, that's all. Just habit. He's not well. He has a bad heart. And the stomach ailment is really an ulcer. I guess that's just about par for the executive course, isn't it? At least one recognizable ulcer.
I wouldn't know. I haven't been an executive very long.
Yes, that's obvious.
Oh?
You're different than most. When you make mistakes...
And I have.
Yes, I know. But you don't do the usual. Put blame on others. Pass the buck. Blow your horn loud enough to drown out your occasional failures. In a way, Mr. Sloan is like that. Only before, he never gave in. If he believed in something, he'd fight for it. He's ill now and older. He was once a wonderful fighter, too.
Marge, why does Mr. Ramsey pick on him so especially?
This is Marge Fleming talking now, not a secretary. Would you take it that way?
Just that way.
Mr. Ramsey doesn't like his judgment constantly questioned. It's this way with Mr. Ramsey. You go along, or you get off.
Andy never got off.
You're here now. Maybe he's about to be pushed.
Paul?
Oh, hi, Andy.
Oh, Fred.
You working late?
Trying to. Come in.
Thank you.
That new watch out of commission? It's 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I know.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I took a solitary ride and just wound up here. It's a magnetic place.
Can be. I was going over the supplements you did for the report. I think Mr. Ramsey's right. You're an engineer by diploma, but a crackerjack industrial planner by instinct or something. Your suggestions were very good, Fred. I've incorporated them all.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I didn't sleep last night.
I liked your approach. You think of people in terms of the human aspect, not just logistically. That's something I've been trying to sell Mr. Ramsey for. I like your ideas.
Will he like them?
Who can say? One thing, he's been complaining I send him the same report every year. He can't say that this year. It's reached a point where I have to have a little something to boast to myself.
How many have you had tonight, Andy? Enough, maybe?
Never enough lately. Sit down, friend. Sit down quietly like a nice, sympathetic friend and associate. I'm wondering if you're as good a human being as you are an industrial relations man.
He doesn't like you, does he?
No.
Why doesn't he fire you?
On our level, you don't get fired. You resign. They don't know how to say get out. So they create a situation you can't work in and finally can't live in. Tension, doubt, mostly subtle, sometimes violent. They keep chipping away at your pride, your security, till first you begin to doubt and then fear and then finally hate. Ramsey wants me to resign. He wants me to get my cross so full I'll be miserable enough to do that.
You take it.
The bigger the job, the more desperately you try to hang on to it. The larger the salary, the more dependent you become upon it. It means more than your pride.
Why do you take it?
Because I'm a weak man. Answer your question? Because I'm scared. I'll have a boy ready for college soon. I'm 56 years old, and I don't think I could get another job. How does it strike you?
How do you think?
I have a dream. Every now and then I dream I'm sitting in that conference room, and he starts to work me over for something I've done that he doesn't like. And then I get up, and I walk over to him, and I spit in his eye, and I smack him, and I say to him, Ramsey! I say to him, Ramsey!
Take it easy, will you?
I'll be all right. Except for these ulcers and bum heart. Perpetual.
Is there anything I can do?
No, thank you, friend. Just don't mention this. My son, Paul, he was going to pick me up here. Tell him I've gone home, that I had to get some rest.
Come on now, Eddie, get on.
Do as I tell you, please, Brent. Help me.
Dad?
No, it's me, Paul.
Oh, man, what a place by night. Where do they keep the caskets? You guys work in this place?
Yeah. Well, how you been, Paul?
Been to a show. Dad said I should drop in. I guess he's gone?
Yeah, he left. Went home early to rest, or so he said.
Good. He's under orders not to work late, but can't seem to keep away lately. Always work, always worrying. No wonder he's number 3 man.
Yeah. Well, come on, Paul. I'll give you a lift home.
Swell. Ever since I can remember, he's been married to this place. Mom used to say the same thing. 2 wives. After time growing up, he'd be here before I got down for breakfast. Once he was 2 Christmas Eves in a row, and Mom threatened divorce. She said they were ready to get straight Mom and Dad. They used to yell and argue, carry on. He was a fighter. It was great growing up. I remember.
Come on, Walter, let me get you another drink.
No, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I have to go, Fran. Fran, it's been a lovely party. I have enjoyed it so much. Good night.
More coffee will be ready soon.
Oh, thank you, Fran. Now, my father's recipe for coffee was to mix salt and chocolate with the grounds, cook them all up together. He'd never drink anything else.
Sounds wonderful.
They serve it at a restaurant that I eat at frequently. I must remember to mention it to Fred. We'll eat there together. You said he was a confirmed coffee drinker?
Dedicated.
Good. He's quite a young man.
How do you like his report?
Thank you for letting me see it, Fran. I know it's not according to Hoyle at a dinner party, but acceptable even so. It makes me extremely proud of my judgment, Fran.
I'm so happy. He's been worried.
Fran!
Excuse me.
Yes, sure.
How are you getting along with Ramsey?
Delightfully. He's a tremendous person, Fred.
Where is he? Staying the night?
No, he's in the study.
It's cozy.
Good night, Fran. It's a wonderful party.
Oh, good night, Bob.
Makes me think I ought to get married myself.
Come back.
Fred, this is some very interesting reading material here. I took the liberty of accepting Fran's invitation to look over your report.
Oh? Well, how does it strike you?
I like it. Of course, I can't say that I agree with all your conclusions, but I'll hear arguments from you. It'll be good to hear arguments again, for a change.
That's the best news of the evening.
I like initiative, Fred. I like a man who'll think a new thought, take a different step on his own.
You know, Andy and I thought that if we could work out some kind of a...
Andy? Oh, come now, Staples. I know Andy's work. I've been exposed to it since I was of voting age. This isn't Andy's thinking.
Well, Mr. Ramsey, I don't know what Fran may have told you,
Look,
but...
Fred, learn to accept success. Don't take half of your accomplishment and hand it out gratuitously to the man on your left who hasn't the stuff to do it on his own. There'll be a meeting tomorrow. We can discuss the report then.
I don't want to...
Look, Fred, I never give undue credit. Ask your friend Sloan. You think I'm tough on him, don't you? I am tough on him.
Well, he's a good man, Mr. Ramsey.
He was a good man. And grandfather clocks were good clocks, and Stanley steamers were good cars, but you can't run them in competition today.
No, I don't know. I like his ideas. Well, some of them.
So do I. Some of them.
Still, a man with his experience, he'd be awfully hard to replace. Better get that coffee.
Are you serious, Fred? Sloan would be hard to replace. Do you honestly think that? Why the devil do you think I brought you on here from Cincinnati at a week's notice? You think that was a whim? Fred, you're Sloan's replacement.
So that is the deal.
Well, I assumed you knew that. I'm sure Sloan realizes it. I'm expecting his resignation. I don't like to prolong these things, and I don't want him to have to be fired.
Come on in the living room. Everyone else is gone.
Well, it's awfully late. I really must run, Fran. My hat is in the bedroom, I think.
I'll get it for you.
May I make a suggestion, Fred?
Mr. Ramsey, I don't want to appear ungrateful.
I'm not looking for gratitude. You can't run a business with thank you notes. That's Sloan's trouble. God forgive me, that was my father's trouble, too. This fantastic conception that a large industry could be run like a soup kitchen, like a welfare comfort station. I know what the old-timers think of me. I've grown up getting stared at by a lot of tongue-clucking old fogies who think I'm ruthless. People whose thinking might have kept this business from growing to anything like its present size. This preoccupation with morality. This fantastic, stupid, black and white idea that honesty and profit are incompatible. I just happen to feel that the atmosphere of a large corporation can't be constantly church-like. Thank you, Fran. Well, I've had a very pleasant evening. Good night.
Good night.
Well, it was wonderful having you, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you.
We'll do it again soon.
Yes, I hope we can.
Night. What was that all about?
I'm Andy Sloan's replacement.
A vice presidency?
Must have really laid it on thick tonight.
Oh, look, it takes more than a good dinner and some wifely pride to get that kind of promotion.
Yeah, it takes a little something more. It takes a little misrepresentation of authorship, for one thing. You told Ramsey that I wrote this report, didn't you?
I told him Andy helped you with it.
It was Andy's basic idea.
The same idea he's had for years. I've gathered that much. Fred, you gave it life. You worked it out and made it practical.
Even so,
Look,
he was...
I know how much you did on that report. I also know you can't stand winning because you hate to see a loser.
I don't like stepping on another human being to get into a capital gains bracket. Tomorrow morning in that meeting, he's going to beat Andy to death to make him resign.
I didn't hear you tell Mr. Ramsey he was mistaken. I didn't hear any clear-cut defense of Mr. Sloan. If you don't want to be successful, tell that to Mr. Ramsey. He'll hand you a broom and you can check in every night at 7. Don't tell me. I'm sick to death of hearing it.
Oh, I don't want to argue with you.
Neither do I. I just want you to answer me. Did you tell Mr. Ramsey your wife was mistaken? Did you tell him you were taking vows you shouldn't be?
No, I didn't.
Why?
Because I want the job.
Thank you for a straight and honest answer. I think we can both go to sleep now.
All right.
We continue with Act 3 of Patterns by Rod Serling.
At last, my report all done. Get Miss Lanier to initial that for confidential memo, please.
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you, Marge.
Good morning. This is Mr. Sloan's report. It's all ready to be printed if you'll just...
Take it into Mr. Ramsey, will you? He asked to see it first.
Oh, yes.
Hello?
Is that the report?
Yes, sir. It's all ready for memo if you'll just signature.
Print it.
Mr. Ramsey, I'm sure that...
I've read the report, Miss Fleming, and I've discussed it thoroughly with Mr. Staples. Print it.
Sloan, there's something you have to know about.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin. I've received all the departmental reports that have been turned in. By and large, they show effort and thought. One in particular is unique in its effort and ingenious in its thought. To Mr. Fred Staples of our organization goes my heartfelt thanks and congratulations. His year-end report is ingenious, comprehensive, and fresh. Congratulations, Mr. Staples. Your success is a reaffirmation of my own judgment. My own good judgment, I may add.
Mr. Ramsey.
Now, Mr. Staples, if you're going to drench me with modesty, I may have to reevaluate that judgment.
This is not modesty, Mr. Ramsey. It's just a clearing up of what appears to be a misunderstanding. Now, Andy here actually...
I'm getting to Andy. Mr. Sloan, you'll pardon me if I come right to the point and if I appear direct and highly unflattering. Mr. Sloan saw fit to add his name to this document. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Andrew Sloan, Mr. Frederick Staples. You know what I call that, Mr. Sloan? I call it presumptuous. You're taking credit for someone else's work. A man slips, he clutches, he loses his stuff, he tries to borrow someone else's.
That's not true.
You think I'm mistaken?
Yes,
Mr.
you
Sloan?
are mistaken.
You recollect, no doubt, that I built this business from a scratch pile of old lumber and one machine into a giant. And I made very few mistakes doing it.
Make one in
few
this one.
mistakes in business and few mistakes in judging men.
In this matter, you're mistaken.
I'm not mistaken. Your work hasn't shown this stamp of talent and originality in 10 years.
My work? That's not fair. Mr. Ramsey, you are mistaken, sir. Andy had every right to
And
put his
you're
name on it.
mistaken if you think you can have this meeting degenerate into a private clash of personalities. I want you to sit down.
Oh, Andy, tell him, for heaven's sake, tell him!
Mr. Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey. The misunderstanding arose through a secretarial error. My name was not supposed to be put on that thing. It was a secretarial error.
Meeting is adjourned.
Andy! Andy, what is it? Is it your heart? My pills. Doctor left in my office.
All right, I'll get them. Smith, get an ambulance and see that he's not moving.
Still giving orders. Do me a favor, Fred. Tell him to go to...
Hello? Minutes ago.
Miss Glennon, Fred called me from the hospital, but he'd left before I got there.
Why don't you wait in his office, Mrs. Staples?
Thank you, I will. Where have you been?
I've been on the phone.
talking to his boys, and I've been in a bar talking to myself. And I've about run out of conversation.
All right.
I came back to see Ramsey.
He's in Andy's office.
What?
Right next door.
We're getting out of here, Fran.
Okay by me.
I won't be long.
Fred, hear him through.
He's expecting you.
Andy was supposed to go to Detroit tomorrow morning for a meeting with Phillips. You'll have to take his place. I believe I mentioned that.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Miss Linnea has your reservations.
She has, huh?
Yes.
Fill up the ranks, just like that.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you what it means, Mr. Ramsey. It means I'm not quite as naive as you think I am. Or as blind. You kept harping about Andy Sloane's weakness. It wasn't his weakness that kept digging into you. It was his decency. Andy Sloane was your conscience. He was a constant nagging reminder that some things are wrong.
Keep going, friend.
You used him as a whipping boy to try to make him quit. You made him backtrack and knuckle under, and you finally beat him to death. You wanted him out, but you wouldn't fire him.
That's true.
No, it may be a rotten thing to lick a man's boots, but it's a lot worse to be the man whose boots have to be licked.
I'm not a nice human being. What else?
You're not a human being, period. You're a freak. You're an organizational marvel with no compassion for human weakness. Well, you drive and fight and kick your people into peak efficiency if they can make it, or into a grave like Andy if they can't, because they lack the strength.
And the capacity. He was third in command. That's a lot of responsibility.
This is his business, too.
This is no one's business. It belongs only to the best. To those who can keep it growing, producing, keep it alive. It belongs to us today, yes. But in the future, it belongs to whoever can give it more. And as far as you're concerned...
Don't try to fire me. I still hold this floor, and I still have a few seconds left to officially resign.
What do you want from me? Apologies? I don't apologize. What else? A nice unsullied conscience? You walk out of here with a halo because you spoke your mind. And then what do? You go to work for some nickel and dime outfit run by nice people who won't challenge you, who won't beat your head in, who won't make your talent achieve a height you never dreamed of. A company where you're the best and there's no competition and nothing to fight for. Where everything is handed to you. Where nothing is important enough to fight for.
All right, now it's my turn. What do you want?
I want you to stay. I need help on my level, and you're the only one who's able to function there. All right, you don't like me. I'm not a nice person in your mind. But you learn more, grow more, and do more with me than anywhere else, because I'll run you ragged until you do. I don't want you to like me. Fight me. Take over if you can. And watch the business grow from your effort beyond even our dreams. Be your conscience for me if you want. Be anything you like. And if it's something I don't like, you'll know about it soon enough. But if you stay, you're going to have to fight for every idea and principle that's holy to you. I think you're strong enough to take it. And if not, I think you're strong enough to get out.
I think that's acceptable.
No reservations?
No. Make that one reservation. Andy Sloane had a dream. A pathetic little wish that someday he'd come in here and break your jaw. I reserve the right to keep that wish for him.
I'll have it written into the contract. With a little rider that gives me the same privilege.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You certainly will. Oh, and Staples. Andy Sloane's kids are being taken care of.
Is that going to make you sleep better?
It starts, huh?
That's right. It starts. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
You out of a job?
No, not yet.
Whose terms?
Mine and his.
Satisfied?
Yeah. Very.
I'm glad.
You want me to take you home?
No, I can manage. Finish your work. I'm sure you have some.
I have. Night.
Night.
Well, Fran, I'll be late.
Aren't you always?
The Kraft Television Theatre just presented Patterns by Rod Serling. Here's how to get tonight's recipes free. Just send a postcard with your name and address and the name of the recipe you'd like to Kraft Television Recipes, Box 1718, Chicago 77, Illinois. Because your comments aid us in the selection of future plays and future casts, they're always most welcome. Won't you drop a card or letter to the Kraft Television Theatre in care of the station to which you're now tuned? In a moment, tonight's cast, but first, a word from Kraft.
Mother forgot again. The table spread is refrigerator cold and won't spread at all. But watch Kraft's new Parquet Margarine. It's ice cold and still it spreads smoothly. Get Kraft's delicious new Parquet in the blue package with the cake of ice in the corner.
Tonight, we are privileged to bring you an all-star cast, which is in from now in the order of their appearance.